It's the Sittin Sportside podcast, exclusively on 1045theteam.com.
Third time's the charm, huh, Eric?
The sun will come out. Tanaka. Bet your bottom dollar with Tanaka.
I don't know about that, but...
Oh, my God. Hey, Eric, do we have another special guest on today? It's the second one today?
Way to skip over the intro. We're trying to have a nice solemn cry about the Yankees losing. Right. And remember?
The sun will come out. Tanaka. Bet your bottom dollar with Tanaka.
Well, yes, Mike, we do have another special guest. We had Gaz make his debut. See, welcome to the show, Taylor, because when I'm trying to do the baseball thing in the cry, he wants to introduce you. And then when I want to do the introduction, he's like, no, I'm still crying. Like,
y'all are disjointed right now.
Yeah, we're here. We're joined by Taylor Lattimore.
Funny voices now.
T-Lats.
T-Lats is
what up?
Here in the building. Ladies and gentlemen, it's T-Lats here.
He's been here like the longest out of, besides us, of any of the board ops.
Yeah, I think he's officially third in line now.
Third in line, and he's yet to be on one of our podcasts. That's crazy.
It's sad. I've been here for like a year and a half at least.
I'm still crying, Eric. This is not okay. Can we lose this music before I cry more?
Sorry. Okay. The music's gone, but this stays.
The sun will come out. Tanaka. Bet your bottom dollar with Tanaka.
Well, the season,
that will lose.
The future is still bright, though, right? For the Yankees. I mean, I just want to jump into that. Let's just wrap up the season. We kind of talked about what they're going to do with Gaz, but he's not a Yankee fan. Everyone here now, it's a safe space for all Yankee fans. And
we can speculate to our heart's content about Machado and everyone else is going to come to the Yankees.
Is it worth looking back on the season at all? Like what could have been? Like obviously they set the record.
Can
with
we
the
talk
amount
about
of home
how
runs.
good Gleyber really is? I mean,
exciting.
I know he struggled after the hip injury, but I almost think he was playing it too safe the rest of the way because he didn't.
Here's my
want to
problem with
hurt.
Torres. He came up. He was actually hitting the baseball. Like he would actually go up and just make contact. He was trying. Then he started hitting the walk-off home runs, and then just naturally hitting home runs. And the rest of the team followed suit. And all of a sudden, he was a guy that kind of. I feel like maybe changed his approach a little bit and said, "I want to be more of a power hitter like everybody else. I'm hitting these home runs at Yankee Stadium." And he kind of lost that approach a little bit along the way. Now I don't know if that's Marcus Timms. It wasn't bringing him down to earth as the hitting coach. I don't know if it was the injury that you just mentioned right there because he did miss a decent amount of time. And he never got that approach back. And maybe if he wasn't injured, he maybe beats that play out, and McCutcheon has a chance with the bases loaded against Kimbrel in Game 4 of the ALDS. But I'm 100% with you. Everyone knows it. But you're right. That last 2 months is a little bit shaky. But if you can get that approach back, I'm definitely excited. I mean, who you
personally
by the rookies for sure.
As a first baseman, I think Pierce's foot came off the bag. I think he actually beat it out. Be honest with you, not just saying that. I really think
saying as a true Yankee fan.
As a true Yankee fan. Well, what is it?
No, I'm saying as a first baseman. To me personally, I mean, yes, it's partially because I'm a Yankee fan. It did look like his foot came off the base and Torres was safe.
It was a bit of a stretch. In terms of, I'm saying he was actually stretching to get the ball.
Yeah, I don't know, but that's just my opinion. My opinion means nothing. So
right, I had to look at that a little bit harder, maybe, because I'm not sure I saw it, but I'm not sure I looked at the foot well.
And if Angel Hernandez was at first base, he might have been safe. Oh, got him. Oh, sorry, was that too soon?
That's funny.
Too soon?
The sun will come out. Tanaka.
Maybe not for because Tanaka probably doesn't like Hernandez's, because CeCe had a big problem with Hernandez during that game.
It's funny. Did you know that CeCe's lowest ERA with any umpire behind the plate, though, is actually with Angel?
Is it really?
And I'm not just making it. They actually said that stat the other
He works the corners, so you think that the nights he's given the corners and the
let's be serious. Angel Hernandez's corner is 20 feet outside. Heck, it could almost hit you on the inside corner. Strike. Heck, you could be 10 feet over the base. You're out.
Maybe he just flips a coin.
He's got to do something because he clearly doesn't know what's going on.
He's got like the click thing from the Adam Sandler movie. He like pauses time and does like a whole bunch of stuff. All right, that's probably a trick.
I literally think he goes, hold on, let me look at this. Safe. I don't know. Go check the replay, please, because I really don't know.
What if that's legit? What if he is jealous of the guy who's working replay? right? He doesn't have to do much. So let me give him some work. Let me call this thing safe when it's really out or out when it's really safe.
There's got to be a point where it just
work.
gets embarrassing that you're that bad and that you suck.
Maybe he's just dirty and he's betting on all the games.
You're out. Oh, crap. Check the replay, people.
He's like, damn it, I forgot they have replay.
Yeah,
they can check
right.
what I do. Wish this was the old days.
Oh, God.
When you could fix games and it was easy.
Just ask Pete
That was
Rose.
good,
Oh, too soon?
That was good.
Too soon?
I don't think it's too late. I think
Ooh.
He's not
that was
relevant
funny
anymore.
like a few decades ago. Anything else to say about the Yankees? So there's speculation. We talked about it with Gaz. Taylor, we didn't get really your take. Do you think the Yankees should go after Machado, Harper, or anybody else? I guess first, do you think they should get a position player? But let's focus on Machado first because of the Didi injury. Do you think that they should get Machado, A, because of Didi, or B, regardless of Didi?
Well, I like Didi. So on a long-term scale, I would like to keep Didi around.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, Machado's Machado. I'm down for anyone who's like, he moves the needle, just like Bryce Harper would, just like they thought Stanton would. And Stanton did. He wasn't MVP, obviously.
But he didn't have a terrible year. I mean, I know he struck out a lot.
He was
but
decent.
You know what, though?
He came up from like sky high, and then like he came back down to earth.
But here's the thing, though,
Right,
too.
You can't be mad about that.
April,
Switching
he was
leagues
pretty
like
bad.
that, though, it's not easy switching leagues. He went from the National
no.
League to the AL. The pitching is completely different.
I don't blame him at all for
Is he
any
really?
struggles.
Yeah.
There's pitchers that he hasn't seen, like
There's pitching that
he's never seen.
That's true, but I don't know if they're different per se.
I mean, I don't care who you are. If you hit what do you hit? 260, sign me up for
He close to
260.
270, yeah.
Yeah, 260, 270 with 30 plus RBI, 30 plus home runs
The
and
thing that
100
gets
RBIs. I'll take that every year
The
from
thing
anybody.
that gets me is, he never has walked 100 times in his career. So the fact that he doesn't really walk kind of hurts. And then when it comes to two strikes, his approach is awful. He's swinging like it's a first pitch or a 2-0 or a 3-1 count where he's looking at like. You don't need to hit a home run, especially if you're talking about ALDS game number 4. There's runners on first and second, nobody out. You're down 3 runs, and you're still swinging for the fences with the 2 strikes, trying to tie it instead of just getting on base and extending the inning. That's where teams like the Red Sox and the Astros do things better than the Yankees. Sure, they broke the record for most home runs, but they need to learn how to manufacture runs like really true great teams do.
Yeah, I mean, what does it mean now that they broke the record? Are they playing tonight?
No,
exactly.
It's
Like I feel like Stan. I don't know. I mean, he's hit a lot of home runs before, but like coming off that MVP season, I feel like he had a lot of confidence that he could just swing and it would just go out of the park.
right, especially moving to it. If you go from Marlins Park
to
playing 81
Yankee
games.
Stadium, you think it's just going to sail out. You just have to tap it and it goes, but that just wasn't the case.
Another thing that I thought was interesting in terms of Stanton coming over is like it was the money. It was like we're going to take Stanton instead of Harper, but Harper's name still comes up, and he's the better option, the better fielder, the better walker, and then Yankee Stadium, we'd like to think that he'd be on par with Stanton in the home run. So are we looking back now, like Gaz was saying and everyone else said, like they got him for peanuts, right? They gave up Castro and one of the prospects that they traded for Brian McCann and who was it? Caleb Smith, I think, who had an okay year for them in the majors. That's 3 people that really the Yankees had no major use for, really. So they got him for nothing, but it's still now the contract you had versus the contract you possibly have for Harper. Is he cheaper? Yes, but I think Harper's the better player.
All right, so I agree, but I made a list of my general thoughts on the 2018 Yankees. I don't know.
Can I say something first?
Yeah, go ahead.
The true GOAT of the season is Gary Sanchez. Because you look at the beginning of the season, it was both Stanton and Sanchez were hitting around the Mendoza line. Mm-hmm. Stanton got hot with the weather as the summer rolled on, and he, woke up and got the average, like you said, 260, 270. Sanchez got injured, but he never got the average up. So he's the true GOAT of the season in terms of he did not live up to the expectations more than anybody else on the roster, and he needs to be better next season. I don't know. His approach is pretty bad, too, at the moment. So I think for me, my final thought before I get into your top 10 list that we can all react to, Sanchez just needs to reset and get back to the form. I know it's hard because he just came up. Pitchers didn't have the knock on Sanchez for the 2 months in 2016, but he needs to get back to that approach there and not worry about needing to live up to Judge. He doesn't need to live up to Stanton. He just needs to be his own player, his own hitter, and get back to what he is, because if he's not hitting over 250 and with 35 home runs, he's not a good enough catcher to be warrant starting every single day.
Yeah,
that's my point.
But here's my thing. He may not be the best defensive catcher in the league, but you know what? That doesn't bother me.
That might be an understatement. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I know. But here's my thinking, though.
great.
And follow me here, though. Because yes, Austin Romine's a much, much better defensive catcher than he is. And he proved this year that he can actually hit. And I'm not taking that away from him. He proved to me he's actually a solid backup catcher. Here's my thing, though. I would much rather have Gary Sanchez at the plate with his defensive deficiencies, knowing that he's one swing away from being a difference in that game. I would rather have that.
I totally understand that, and that's where people who only look at Sanchez as a bad catcher, like we're talking about outsiders, who like say he's overrated because of the fact that he's a terrible catcher. That's where they may not understand it. Like I agree with you, but the problem is, look at the people in the playoff right now. The Red Sox, they usually just go with the defensive catcher, whether it's Vasquez or Leon. It's defense first. We'll take with the good with the bad on the offense. And look, Vasquez found a Yankee field right field home run in a big game.
Christian Vasquez is not that terrible hitter, unlike San
But he's like 220. He hit better than Sanchez. Look at that. And he had a bigger home run. I mean, Sanchez had 2 big home runs in the series. I'm not going to diminish that.
Yeah, but he almost won Game 4.
He did. He almost did, but it was almost.
He just missed it.
Guess what would have tied the game?
Yes.
A single. Okay?
Yeah.
I'm just saying. You know what I'm saying?
That's like the theme of the Yankees. I felt the whole year, though, is that they're always swinging for the fences.
That at bat, if he swings at the first pitch, that game's over. Where that first pitch was, that's right in his power zone. He swings at that first pitch.
My point is, look at the Brewers. Eric Kratz, he's had big hits in the postseason. He's not that great of a catcher. Grandal is probably the best catcher out of anyone, but they sometimes start Barnes there in LA.
Grandal was getting booed last night.
Yeah, I mean, because he hasn't been as good from the plate as he had been earlier in the year. And then look at the Astros. They have McCann, who's a good defensive catcher, but they also go with Martin Maldonado. They don't say, sometimes they say, we're not going to throw McCann out there because we'll put our better defensive catcher. Not that McCann's a bad defensive catcher. My point being, not to get off on too much of a tangent about the catcher position here. We already
I think that ship has sailed.
That ship sailed. But the catcher position has been so bad from the offensive standpoint that having the best possible defensive catcher might be the best move at this point in Major League Baseball. And if Sanchez doesn't get the bat to where it should be, like your point, I would rather have Sanchez up there, but the results aren't being what they should be, then you can't take the good with the bad because the good's no longer as much there as you need it to be.
Touche.
Mike James, you said you had 10 things that you listed down on there. You already made one, I think. I think you said we're happy to have Glaber. I think that was one on your list, if I'm not mistaken.
It is.
What are the other 9? Let's go 2 through 10. Let's do it.
Well, technically, Glaber's not number 1. Believe
he's
it
not number 1. Okay, so the number actually makes a difference.
I didn't number him though in importance.
Okay, right.
So number 1 was, how did this team actually manage to win 100 games?
Wow.
I mean, Judge missed a good chunk of the year. Sanchez missed a chunk of the year.
Second half.
Missed a chunk of the year. Their starting pitching was mediocre for most of the year. I mean, Sevy was good.
You kind of forget about
bullpen is ridiculous.
You kind of forget about the Herman and Loaisiga era. I mean, you really do. And Loaisiga had some decent starts there, but there wasn't a 1 through 5 when Montgomery went down. There wasn't a 1 through 5 for sure. So how did you want to answer this? I think they had a really hot start to the season, and they were a 500 baseball team the rest of the year, which was good enough to get them to the 100-win mark. Barely, right? Just barely.
Yeah. They were 102 and 60, I think, or 103 and 59 or something.
Wasn't it exactly 100 wins?
Was it 100? I thought it was.
Or was it 102?
I don't know. It was close.
I think it was 100.
It was 100 because it was
exactly 100.
Because the Red Sox,
had 108. Red Sox had 108. I think that it was just the sense of they had the American League was pretty bad this year. You have Baltimore, which you did, and the Yankees lost their fair share to Baltimore. That's not.
I think they
did.
Finished with an under 500 mark against them this year.
Yeah.
Right, but I think the American League was actually worse than the National League. And this is a completely different topic, but American League had could have had the 5 best teams, maybe 3 or the 4 best teams in all of baseball. Definitely top 3. I think you could go. It was Red Sox, Astros, give or take those 2, and then the Yankees, and then anyone from the NL. But the NL as a whole was a lot better of a league. So factor in the fact that you're playing the Central as much as you're playing all the Central. You're playing the bad teams in the West, like the Rangers and the Angels, and then you have the Orioles as much time as you did, and then and then the Blue Jays. I think that the fact that it was maybe in the grand scheme of things easier schedule for the American League. That's how they got to 100. I mean, but. Let's not digress there. Let's get into the more positive things that you have on your list, Mike.
All right. This is probably going to be the most criticized one I have on here. But
all right, let's get right into it.
Personally, from my standpoint, Aaron Boone did not have that bad of a year. I mean, it wasn't great. But it wasn't great.
Yeah, I mean,
but how many first-year managers win 100 games? That's my biggest thing.
But here's my rebuttal to that. What changed from anything between him and Joe Girardi? There really wasn't much. Larry Rothschild stayed. First base and third base coach, I'm pretty sure were the same. I don't know. I mean, Phil Nevin, and then who else? Timms was also the hitting coach. There's not much really changed with this team from the coaching perspective, and then from the hitting perspective, they only got better, right?
Yeah.
They bring up the young kids. They get Stanton. So
I
don't disagree with you. Go ahead, Taylor.
What I felt was like he mostly. I don't want to diminish anything that because he is a rookie manager, and like I give him props for that and for winning 100 games. But I feel like a lot of what he was doing was just like you were saying, like just kind of coasting on talent. And then when it came to times where he had to make the big decisions, he didn't make the right ones.
There were some pretty bad.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, he did make some terrible decisions, but for the most part, considering the fact that how much talent he actually lost throughout the year, it's not a bad first year.
I don't know. I just think the players themselves are really good.
I don't think.
Like, I think it's a good team. So, yeah, I mean, it was a good first year. You can't really be too mad about it. But
Right.
I don't know how much better or worse they would have been if they still had Girardi.
Because that's the thing. That's the thing. Basically,
that's the question.
The reason you fired Girardi is because he didn't get you. If you're looking at the grand scheme of things, there's two different things. There was the first one of the Aaron Boone's going to be better with the young talent. I guess that's true. I don't know. Girardi was good with young talent. And then the second thing was Girardi didn't get you to the World Series. That's really the only thing you have to really judge it. They got to Game 7 and they lost. And then, even though he did the blunder in Game 2 of that ALDS in 2017, they ended up winning that series anyway.
In my defense,
Boone did not make people say, and I think myself included, didn't pull Severino quick enough. Maybe he didn't even pull CeCe quick enough.
Yeah.
I know it's hard to do that in those big games, but he didn't make anything in the postseason to differ from Joe Girardi. And therefore, when you look at it from the outside looking in, as a grand scheme of things, he had a good year, but what would have been different if it was Joe Girardi? That's the only question.
I'm going to skip to number 4 here.
But can I ask you a question first? Who's the bigger difference for the Red Sox, though? Is it did they jump to wins because of Alex Cora, or did they jump to wins because of JD Martinez?
It's easy answer.
JD Martinez.
It's
right. So where does the manager
sure.
come into the win total difference? I don't know if there's exact science.
And I say that, and I'm not saying that because I've known JD since he was in college.
He's always doing the name drops.
No. But listen,
you're talking about Mike Fiers. Oh, he's my best friend.
Listen, here's my thing with JD. I purposely did not want him to go to Boston for that sheer fact. I said he's going to be the difference maker in Boston, and he proved it this year.
Mm-hmm. But Mookie will still be MVP.
Oh yeah,
I'm on the JD train. I'm on the
I
JD
hate
train
the
more
Red Sox.
than most are in terms of MVP, but you can't argue with Mookie.
I hate the Red Sox,
So
but they're a fun team to watch. It's scary to say that, but they're actually just fun to watch.
You got to respect it when you see great. Like, I hate Tom Brady with every fiber of my being, but I respect that he's probably the best quarterback of all time. I respect it, like I respect that Mookie is probably the best hitter in baseball.
I will never deep down ever admit the fact that I actually like Brady, but because I don't. But I respect him. Like, I hate Belichick.
Taylor never said he liked Brady.
No, I said I hated him. I don't like Brady as a person or as a football player, but I know that I cannot deny the fact that he is very, very good.
Mm-hmm. You can't deny 5 Super Bowls, and you can't deny Mookie year after year playing great right field.
You should only have 4.
When Mookie comes up to the plate, you're like, all right, well, there's
3.
a pretty good chance.
You really should only have 3, Mike.
But somebody didn't run the ball, and
someone blew a 20-something point lead.
25-point lead in the second quarter or second half.
Yeah.
Number whatever on the list.
I'm going to skip to number 4 here because we were just talking about Girardi. I don't miss Girardi. I've been calling for his head for I can't tell you how many years. I don't miss him. I'm glad he's gone, and I'm happy with Boone so far after 1 year.
That's about the same.
Yeah,
it's on the same wavelength. I got nothing else to say other than personal preference. I think that's what we basically said it came down to. It was personal preference in the end.
I really, I agree with what you said. Like, he was 1 game away from the World Series, and then you got Stanton, you get Boone. Boone, like, he should have more. He got Stanton. That's a whole nother person that's like, he was an MVP. He is the reigning MVP, and he came in and you didn't even make the ALCS. So, like, I don't know. I'm not impressed with Boone. I'm not saying that I hated it and everything that he did, because he did get to 100 wins. They got to the LDS and they were at least somewhat competitive, but I can't say that I'm completely happy with him.
My one issue with Boone to move forward with the conversation, I guess, was he isn't the guy that lights fire. Like, he had that one game where he did the thing with the plate and everyone loved it, but he's not the guy to light fire underneath his team by yelling at them or giving a different thing. He's coming and says, "I'm love. I'm bringing in love and good energy."
It's like a new generation.
Exactly.
It's
like almost participation trophy-esque.
Exactly.
And when guys like Glaber, these young kids, are coming out and then they get into their ruts, who's going to light the fire underneath them? You need a veteran or the manager, and if it's not going to be the manager, then who's the veteran that's going to step up? There's not. Brett Gardner's the only one.
Aaron Judge is too nice.
CC. Exactly. Aaron Judge is too nice.
Plus, he's also
the same age as most of these guys.
Exactly.
Number whatever, unless you want to rebut that.
No, yeah, I got nothing.
You just don't like Girardi. He was frustrating. Last year, 100%.
I got so many more gray hairs with Girardi, but now that he's gone, my gray hairs went back to black. Just saying, they all changed back to black magically.
But if you always go back to who got farther so far, Girardi had more ALCS appearances, and it's only one year for Boone.
Yeah, but
more
hold on.
ALCS
I'm gonna throw
appearances,
this one
World
at you.
Series ring in 09.
Where did Girardi make it his first year as Yankee manager?
They didn't make the playoffs.
Exactly.
You're right. You're right. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair.
Fair enough.
Last year
fair.
in the old stadium, he couldn't make the playoffs.
So let's put Boone on the back burner and just let him ride it out. Let's see where he goes.
He's got another
Let's see
year.
where
He
goes.
still has a talented team, and I'm right there. I would love for him to win a World Series.
And
with
he's
the
going to get
Yankees, of course.
Machado and Bryce Harper and Clayton Kershaw. So it's fine.
And Dallas Keuchel.
I would love that. I would love Clayton Kershaw. That'd be great.
That'd be awesome.
So my next one is Stanton kind of is starting to remind me of A-Rod. Let me tell you why before you rebut
go
this.
on.
And it's not exactly a bad. It's not a good way, but it's not a bad way. It's a little bit of both, I would say, because of the sheer fact that yes, Stanton had a pretty good regular season, like A-Rod usually does, but he stunk it up in the playoffs like A-Rod did every year except 2009. And I'm thinking that's why I think he reminds me of A-Rod. It's not really a bad way because I enjoy watching him hit like I did A-Rod. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
I understand. And I think it has to do. I mentioned it earlier about how he warmed up with the weather. You get back to September and October, and the weather cools down a little bit, and these guys who hitting the fly balls, guys like Stanton who rely on the home run, the ball doesn't travel as far. And so when you get into the October baseball and you're hitting the fly balls and you're still trying to hit the home run, things aren't moving as fast. You still got the good exit velocity, but it slows down a little bit more. It doesn't go as far. And so maybe that is what, I don't know if it was A-Rod's problem, but maybe that's what's going on with Stanton in his first postseason appearance. And that's just it too, Mike. I think it's the first postseason. You look at a guy like Clayton Kershaw, we brought him up. You know, his first taste of postseason early on was very bad, and he got the stigma of being bad in the postseason. But he's actually been a lot better, with the exception of that Game 1 start against the Brewers this past series. He's been very good in the playoffs the last couple of seasons in terms of his appearances. So there is this stigma of first time jitters, and maybe he'll be better in the future. And also too, baseball is such a streaky game, is it not? I mean, it's such a small sample size postseason. So, yeah, it's easy to say people are bad in the postseason, but when you're not going, and sometimes you can't help that. But
yeah,
it's the special players that step up, right?
I agree. Well, to go to Judge, I don't know. I think he has a lot of poise, kind of like Jeter. I think that eventually, as he gets more postseason experience, eventually he will be the guy who has the big hit. I mean, he kind of did last year. Last year he had some really big hits in their playoff run, and it was super exciting. And I think that he will get there eventually and be more Jeter-esque.
Judge. I mean, Judge was Judge was probably the star of the postseason this year.
Yeah.
The home run to go atop in the wild card game. You know,
he hits clutch shot or clutch
home runs.
Yeah,
I mean, both wins in the postseason for the
hits
Yankees
in general just
were home runs first by Aaron Judge to go up.
Yeah, exactly.
Dingus.
Yeah.
All right, let's go on to another one. There's some good ones here.
All right,
let's get to the good ones, Mike.
Here's the one we already touched on. Thank you, Chicago, for Gleyber Torres.
All right, next we touched on it. Although Chicago to enter all of a sudden the Cubs fans in my brain right now, they would rebut that and say, well, we got the World Series in 2016.
That's true.
So until the Yankees get that World Series, then they would always rebuttal that. So we have to get the World Series with Gleyber.
That's true.
All right, so this one you guys probably aren't going to agree with because I hate Gardner. I hope to God Gardner's gone next year. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of the escapade. I don't know.
I think where he ended up, right? So after you trade for McCutchen and Judge comes back, Gardner became this fourth outfielder, maybe play against the righties, bat ninth, and then come in late in games as a defensive replacement. I think that is what Gardner is as a Major League Baseball player, whether it's here, whether it's in San Francisco, or wherever he could possibly go. I'm just talking about any other team he's at. That might be what Gardner is now. Now, he could go to a team like the White Sox or the Twins or some team that needs, who are close to being playoff teams and need a veteran leadership to get everyday at-bats. He could do that. Mm-hmm. But if he wants to stay in New York, I think that is what he's become as a general and a player, but especially if he stays in New York, he's a fourth outfielder at this point. That's how I feel.
I think he's...
So I don't disagree with you, but I kind of agree with you.
I think he's good veteran leadership. That's basically... Not that that's all he's good for, but that's the best thing that he's good for now. And just saying, I don't know how anyone can complain about Gardner being on the team still when Jacoby Ellsbury is still somewhere doing things.
Wait, he's still a Yankee? I thought he died.
Exactly.
I was gonna make a horrible reference that I'm just not gonna do it.
Like, I don't think you can complain about Brett Gardner being on the team until Jacoby Ellsbury is not on the team.
All right. So, anyways, moving on. Please, Brian Cashman, please re-sign J-Happ. I hate to say that because I didn't want him in the first place when we made that trade, but now I don't want to lose him either. Does that make sense?
Yeah, J-Happ was instrumental, I think, in at least keeping pace with the Red Sox. I don't know if they make the
playoffs if they don't trade for J-Happ.
Definitely don't get 100 wins.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
They don't make the playoffs without J-Happ?
They're going to make the playoffs. They were basically almost locked into the playoffs when they got him.
So you're saying that, they finished how many, 8 or something above Seattle? Or Tampa, probably Tampa Bay, actually.
Yeah, but...
I don't know. I don't know about that, but I understand. Okay. But the ultimate point of what you just said is that you want J-Happ. And I think I agree with you only in the sense of if there's not an upgrade. Because if there's someone else out there that is an upgrade over him that you can get that can maybe rival... Because you're talking about bad postseason performances... In a bad postseason game, number 1, he let up all 5 earned runs. They cut it to 5-4. If Boone, once again, it's hard to give the early hook, but if Boone gives the early hook and the bullpen still does what it does, they might have won that game 4-3. Happ did not do what he was traded. Look, Steve Pearce was traded to the Yankees or traded to the Red Sox to hit the Yankees well. He did it well in the regular season, and in the postseason, he hit the Yankees pretty decently. Not out of this world, but he had some pretty big hits. Happ was traded to the Yankees to pitch well against the Boston Red Sox.
He did that, though.
He did that in the regular season, but he did not do it in the postseason.
Yeah.
But if you're going to nitpick, trading for people, look at Sonny Gray.
Well, yeah.
That was a train wreck.
That was a lot worse than the Happ
that was
trade.
an absolute train wreck.
I remember how excited I was when we got Sonny Gray.
So was I.
2 starts in,
I board opted his first game, and I think he was decent in that game.
Against Cleveland?
Yeah, and then I don't...
We'll have to go, I'm not going to go on the Sonny Gray train here. But he's a guy that you actually would want to be part of the 2019 team.
No.
I know people
Are you out of your mind?
view that as but you'd want...
As a reliever or as a starter? Well, I would want him to be as good as advertised and be able to be a decent starter, but it seems like he can't.
For me, there's this thing where he's not going to be a good starter at Yankee Stadium.
Oh,
but
no.
I just feel like... there's still something that could be there. People bounce back after bad years. I think he could be something for the Yankees. As long as he's still on this team, he needs to find a role. And if it's the bullpen, it's the bullpen. But I think that if they don't have the 5th starter, you have to at least give Gray an opportunity because you gave up a ton for him, and you're paying him a decent amount too.
I don't know. I just feel like his problem wasn't even mostly, I feel like, mechanical. It was just, it's all in his head at this point, and he just needs to get over the fact that he's had some bad games and the crowd is the crowd at Yankee Stadium and whatnot, and he has to find a way to deal with that kind of pressure, and I think he'll be fine.
Who's coming back, CC or J-Happ, if you had to pick one?
Oh.
Because CC says he wants to play one more year, and he said he'd play anywhere. Anywhere. So if the Yankees don't let him go, he's going somewhere else. Or if Yankees don't sign him, he's going somewhere else.
Probably J-Happ.
I think I'd rather have J-Happ.
I think I'd rather have J-Happ as well, but I think that the answer probably is Happ. I think actually CC might be done with the Yankee uniform. But it really depends where they're going with the pitchers and who's out there. Obviously, we mentioned Keuchel and where Cashman will go. Justice Sheffield, is he guaranteed a spot in the rotation early on? Who knows? Montgomery, he's
I'm upset
not back
we
until
only
mid-season.
saw Sheffield for 3 innings, if that.
That's what they wanted to do. They were limiting his innings, and they were going to bring him up in September. That's all they did, and we'll see what happens next season.
That actually brings up my next one.
Let's
get another real starter on this team.
Yeah.
We need another
I think we just
starter.
touched on that, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, you said you when we were talking, if you liked Happ or if you wanted to keep Happ, and you said that unless there was an upgrade, I want to keep Happ and also get someone else.
Yeah, I could see. I agree with that. But it really depends, because if you really want to go through the rotation, you have Severino, Tanaka, and then I guess it's all up in the air. Those are the 3 spots. If you want to pencil in Justice Sheffield, that's only 2 spots, and that would be Happ and whoever. Or like I said, I know people don't like it, but Sonny Gray is one of those spots penciled in.
Why are we not talking about Chance Adams? The guy really did not pitch that bad.
He's definitely an option. That's another reason.
Yeah.
That's another reason why I'm not sure
his first
you'd
start
get both.
against Boston wasn't terrible. He gave up 3 runs. It wasn't terrible. And
his 2016 minor league 2017 minor league compared to his 2018 minor league numbers were starkly different in terms of 2017.
Think about that start against
better.
Boston. JD Martinez is what killed him.
Right.
In that game. Nobody else.
So I'm saying, if you're willing to give something like that an opportunity, Domingo Germán an opportunity to stick in the rotation, or Loaisiga, whoever, to step up, including Sheffield, you really only have one spot in your rotation open that could go to Gray, Happ, or another upgrade at free agency. And I think that everyone and their mother who's a Yankee fan would want the better upgrade. The problem is there one out there, and I don't know if there really is one that would go to the Yankees and the Yankees would throw money at or not, unless it's Kershaw.
Mm-hmm.
Because he has to opt out, right? He has to opt out of his contract.
Wouldn't be surprised if he does.
So he might for the more money, but
I feel like he would.
He's like a lifetime Dodger guy, I feel like, but we'll see.
Here's my next major huge point. Please, and this is not going to happen because they already said they're going to bring back the entire coaching staff. Why is Larry Rothschild still our pitching coach? The guy's terrible. Terrible. We need a new pitching coach. Andy Pettit's out there. David Cohn. I'd rather have Paul O'Neill as our pitching coach than him. No? Too soon?
Okay, we talked a lot about the managing. Here's my one thing I'll say about this comment is it is an interesting thing of when Girardi left, everybody stayed. Pretty much everybody on that thing stayed. So what did Boone bring in? So to that point, I think there is a sense of if you're going to shake things up, truly shake things up, and maybe it is time to give. Because why is it? I'm not going to blame Sevy's second half struggles almost every year, except for last year on Rothschild. But at some point, you got to bring someone else. Like look what Pedro Martinez did with him over the summer.
Why not hire Pedro?
I don't think he wants to work in baseball.
I know, but
have you listened to him on TBS?
Yankees.
He's like he enjoys his off time, but
he still call the Yankees his daddy.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway,
Eric, something good happened behind me because I'm not paying attention.
Home run
for Boston.
Oh, who was it?
Steve Pierce. Told you he came in to hit well. Just broke a 2-2 tie against the Astros.
Yeah.
By the time people listen to this, it'll be over. But anyway,
Strozen 6.
No, I think I agree with you. I don't agree with you, Mike, because
he's pointing to Mike.
Sorry.
I'm not going there.
I don't agree with
PG.
Mike because I feel like you just don't like him just because you don't like him, and like
because he's old.
Yeah, exactly. But I would agree that I would be okay with like a shakeup, like Eric's saying, just for the sake of shaking it up. You shook up, like you got.
Like you already got rid of Girardi.
Yeah, so like bring in a new staff and let's see if you can tap into some potential and
tap into Sonny Gray or
yeah,
whoever
exactly.
it is.
Like shake up the status quo and see what comes out of it.
And I mean, I'd love to see the meeting between Boone and Rothschild. Like, are they always on the same page? Because he's a new age manager, Boone is. So maybe he should bring in someone who's more along what he wants to do. So that's how I feel about it.
All right, and last one. I want some more. Voit hits one to Beloit. Bye, birdie. It's Luke Voit time in New York, baby. Let's do it.
Bye, birdie. That's a good one.
See what I did there?
That's a good one. I think it all comes down to if they find somebody to trade. Bird probably will have every opportunity to win the position in spring training. If he out-hits Luke Voit in spring training, Bird will probably get the job.
Bird always hits in spring training.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So he could open up the season as maybe Voit will make the roster, but my prediction is if Bird doesn't get traded or Voit doesn't get traded, because remember the Yankees might be like, hey, look, this guy's at his peak of his possibility. We could flip Chase and Shreve and whoever else they traded.
Thank God he's gone. For whatever. He should have been on this list. Thank God.
But that's the point. Like if they could flip Luke Voit based on what he really did down the stretch, or they could buy into Luke Voit. And I agree with you. I think what Voit has done and the potential that he shows is obviously, but we bought into the Bird train based on the potential he showed too.
Do you guys
so this could happen both ways.
Year when
Mike.
we still had Chase and Shreve, and the three of us were always texting back and forth like, "Oh God, how long is this?" I'll never forget the game. I was working. There were extra innings. Taylor, I think I texted you.
Yeah.
And Chase and Shreve comes in. I'm like, the game's over. First pitch, it was gone. I was like, are you kidding me?
The game's over, home run.
He had had one good outing. Remember, like where Chapman was blowing it, and then he came in and saved it somehow.
And he still almost blew it.
But he saved Chapman's game. My last point about the Voit thing, and before we wrap up this podcast about the New York Yankees 2018 season, is I think that they want Bird to be the guy. They'll let them battle out on spring training. I think they'll give the position to Bird to start out as the player, or it could be a straight platoon, but I think Bird will get the bulk of the at-bats, and if he struggles the first month and a half of the season, whether Voit is in the minor leagues for that time, or he's the backup first baseman, then if Bird doesn't prove it for a month and a half for a good 100, 150 ABs, then Voit will come in. You'll hear the boo birds for Bird. You hear the boo birds, and Voit will get that opportunity yet again. I think that they're going to want to give Bird any chance to prove what he has been.
Yeah, I think it's a question of who has more upside. I'm not sure if that's Bird because Voit was pretty good down the stretch, but
to my surprise, I give him all the credit.
Yeah, I think they'll keep both. I think because then if you go with Bird, if Bird struggles, you have that backup, so it's like a win-win situation. Like either way, if one of them struggles, you have the other one who hopefully won't.
Exactly. And I think that people are rushing because this is New York Yankees, right? This is the fanship that really does rush a lot, right?
We're impatient.
Yeah. And when Bird had a bad year, like really bad, and he hasn't had a full season.
Yeah, that first year he was super injured all the time. Yep. Like he barely came back and played. He came back and then he was injured again.
And he's a year removed from a pretty darn good postseason from what I remember last year. So
it's pretty good.
He's some big home runs. And so I think he could really still be a good player. He's still a young guy. People forget this. He's probably barely older than Judge.
Yeah.
27 years old or something like that. So he has a lot of opportunity. And then same thing with Voit. I think you might have found a gem. I don't think that the Cardinals thought they had this.
I don't think they would have traded him.
I don't think they would have traded him.
They had any idea.
They don't really have a position over there for him, possibly.
Or at least not for less.
But right, exactly. More. I think that there's this. Wasn't supposed to do this, basically.
Yeah.
And that's always dangerous. Like, what is Max Muncy going to do next year for the Dodgers? Is it going to continue, or is that an aberration? Yonder Alonso is another name that comes to mind of a guy who did really good, and this year was okay, but you have these guys who have really good stretches, like Justin Smoke. He didn't regress as much, but he didn't have as good of a year like he did last year. He's going to be one of those people that has this really good spurt, and then he's really just this pedestrian guy that you're stuck with as you're starting first baseman, and on July 31st, you're trying to trade for somebody next year. That's a possibility if both stink next year. It's legit.
I think that's a big thing about baseball is it is very, very streaky. I think one of the most streaky sports. Like
you can't predict baseball season.
The sun will come out. Tanaka.
Oh man.
Hey, Eric, speaking of which, should we plug the fact that we interviewed Sterling last year too?
Well, what we talked. I can remember the number one thing we talked about was like Starlin Castro, and then he brought up like Wes Unseld, the NBA player, because of Rookie of the Year or something like that.
MVP Rookie of the Year
because of Judge. Oh. But if you want, look, it's on the Sittin Sportside podcast page. If you go to youtube.com/team1045 or 1045theteam.com and click on the Sittin Sportside podcast tab, all the interviews are there.
Plug it up.
Yeah. But there's only one show that has Taylor Lattimore, and it's this show. So.
Hey, speaking of which, Taylor,
the best show.
You must plug your Twitter handle.
Yeah. That's my Twitter handle?
You know how many people listen to the end and then get to this and they tweet at us all the time.
2 people.
All the time.
All right. Well, if you want to tweet at me, get at me.
But be wary. They tweet a ton.
Well, I might not tweet back at you. I might tweet at someone else like I did to Mike James the other day. But
the wrong Mike James, by the way. Sorry, I couldn't help.
That's the Twitter handle, wrong Mike James.
I'm gonna go make that now. I made new Twitter just for Taylor.
It's your burner account. You can start tweeting.
Not that Mike James.
All right, so if you want to tweet at me, it's at Terrell2, TUHRELL, the number 2.
Yeah, we have some good conversations with the board ops. Guys really appreciates the anytime a board op gets screwed over. And all of a sudden, it used to be Closer, and Closer hasn't been a board op for a long time. And so now it's the Taylor Lattimore. What does he call it? I don't even.
The
something trophy. I don't know.
The Taylor Lattimore.
The screwed board op trophy. Yeah. I don't know. But yeah, he's got the trophy now. He's got the Ring of Honor, I guess, of being I don't know if it's an honor,
but
he's here I guess.
Really sucked.
He gets stuck on all the games. So we appreciate Taylor for that, and we appreciate him coming on here. Maybe come on again if we're ever in the same building at the same time.
I'm down for it.
We cross paths enough. Maybe we'll just do an impromptu podcast.
Eric, I still owe you $5. I didn't forget to, by the way.
Is this about the Jets thing from week 1? Yeah. He gave me the points against the Lions. He gave me the points at the Jets Lions week 1.
That worked out real well for me.
I won by a lot. So
you covered so badly that the never mind. just yeah. Anyways,
it's 10 minutes over when Mike said he wanted to be out.
I'm getting yelled at. I gotta go.
Oh man, look at he's getting whipped. He's getting whipped.
You're whipped.
Mike James whipped. All right. Should these people stay classy, Mike?
And it's announcer MJ44 on Twitter. Eric
H1045. We appreciate you listening to the Sittin Sportside podcast. We'll see you next time.
Stay classy, Cap Region.